Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next The Dawn of Yangchen chapter analysis video. This one's going to be for chapter 9, The Parade, and we continued the trend in terms of chapter length of going from a very short, like 3-page chapter to a 7-page chapter once again. But this one is from Yangchen's perspective, so she has obviously left Kavik to, in her mind, make up your mind, but she's in a way left him no real choice about what his decision is going to be. She'll come back to him. So for now, she moves on to, I suppose she has a meeting coming up with the Shangs, and here we get just like, in a way, the following day and her on her way to meet the Shangs. So just to sort of set up for more of the actual story of what Yangchen is doing here in Bin So the opening of this chapter is actually quite interesting because we finally have a chance to, we're from present-day Yangchen's perspective. So we finally have a chance to get into the whole idea of how does the whole memories of the past avatars thing work nowadays. So Yangchen opened her eyes and stared up at the ceiling. Clay, not ice, still Bin though, still Yangchen. She was pretty sure of it. And it goes on to more or less get across this idea that she seems to imply that there are these certain situations where she might wake up and in a way not remember what she was just doing, or that she might have woken up and it literally just be another avatar's memories. And again, I'll highlight that the book is a little vague as we go on about the exact effect of this on Yangchen, and doesn't really commit to any significant impact on her. We'll get little moments of this as we go through, but here's one of them that seems to just be a more day-to-day kind of approach to it. She lay in bed and went through the exercises Abbess Dagmola had developed for her when she was younger. She thought about the previous night's events, linked them to her task for the days to come, purposely skipped over the wild clash that had gone on inside her head in between, forging a mindful connection to herself, with the idea that she really has to, in a way, make an effort to connect the dots on the stuff that is Yangchen's memories and separate them from a previous avatar's memories. Now, when I went through this the first time, I did find it actually interesting as well that it was Abbess Dagmola who developed these exercises for her, and not Jetsun, given that Jetsun was the one more or less tasked with helping Yangchen through nearly everything that she was doing. So is it just, did they want to give Dagmola something to do, or what? The first sign of kind of there's something. Yeah. They note that, in this case, it was sort of confusing, especially because after the events of what happened at the Blue Man's, the ice kind of hotel place, she switched where she was going to sleep just to avoid, anything else happening. And that switch of sleeping positions could have potentially confused her. And they just get across the idea that she's interrupted in the middle of these exercises, and that of late she has, in a way, more often than not fully completed these exercises. It's an interesting one. It's just hearing the interruption knocked Yangchen out of the flow. She found resuming the mental exercises where she left off too daunting, starting over again an impossibility. So she didn't. Herein was the danger. Not that Abbess Dagmola's wisdom wasn't effective, but that Yangchen with increasing frequency didn't follow it. I see what they're trying to do here, but because the book never commits to showing you a bad effect of her not doing these exercises, it gets a little bit kind of awkward. And I get it to a degree. They're sort of implying that if she doesn't even partially do these exercises, what happened in the very first chapter of the book will happen just in the present day event. And there are little moments where you maybe see that okay, there's a maybe slight hint of something about to happen, but they never do anything with it. So you're left wondering, in a way, this is one of the major things in the description for the book, but you don't do much with it. It's not fundamentally related to the plot of this book. Now, it might be in the second book, and so it's worth the setup here, but we have to wait and see on that. So it's an interesting one, definitely. About the only major effect that you get here is that when she kind of wakes up, she just stretches and she's like, she propped herself up against the wall, hoping the cloudiness would drain out of her head, and lifted her arms for Pick and Pack to land on them. They didn't come. Ah, right. She'd left the lemurs in the care of the northern air temple. So just this weird sense of like, okay, her not fully completing these mental exercises to connect her memories together has meant that she sort of temporarily forgot that Pick and Pack aren't directly with her. They're a little bit away at the northern air temple. And again, it's just like, okay, that like there's a sense of like her memories are like not quite being herself. What's going on here? She does kind of think about Kavik in the day before and be like, a smile played across her lips. She was jealous in a way. Last night's follies would be a lighthouse in his memories. He was never going to forget the day he ran into the Avatar twice. Whereas I think she's sort of implying that if she doesn't keep doing these exercises, she could forget a somewhat eventful day in the life of an Avatar where she met this thief like multiple times. But for him, it's an unforgettable day. For her, something might pop up to kind of push it out in a way. So Boma comes to wake her up, and this other guy who's sort of part of her retinue at the moment, Master Sadao, who is like working here for the Shangs basically. And she really gets across the idea of, like, I don't answer to Shang. He's trying to rush me here to get on time. She even talks a little bit about how Sadao wanted them to switch locations to a place he suggested, but she specifically chose somewhere else because he likely wanted the Avatar to sleep in a place that had all these like listening positions for the Shangs to get an advantage on her, and just the extra layers of detail that she has to go in through to keep things private in a way. So that's all that. She then opens up the scroll that Kavik was about to steal in the previous chapter and kind of looks through it in that, okay, meeting with the Shangs coming up. What she has is this scroll is an architectural plan of the Bin-Ur Gathering Hall, which is where the meeting is going to take place. And she notes on it, what do you know? Heated floors. And this is a setup for, in a way, what she's going to do after the meeting that she actually has. Because, of course, she has to attend the meeting properly, but she's got other plans as well. So heated floors is a pretty notable thing that she will take advantage of going forward. So that's kind of interesting. So then we get into the actual title of the chapter, The Parade. This is basically just a public march through the streets of Bin-Ur as she heads to the meeting hall. So she's on her bison here, Nujan, Nujian, Nujan. It's noted, I think, later that this kind of translates to like arrow, like you called your bison Arrow. They have arrow tattoos, like arrow fur markings. Okay, very clever, Yangchen. But there's just a fun little note here about how she has taken to really not liking people to rush her around the place. So she's thought Nujian to do this really exaggerated like march where like the legs go really high up and it makes a big fuss and all the kids who watch kind of laugh at it, and just her trying to take some control over these situations where she's sort of being handled around the place here by these kind of high up peoples. Boma is with them, and again, I mentioned Boma before, but I didn't explain it. If you've read the Rift comic, you will have seen Boma before. He is the guy who accompanied her on her first mission as the Avatar, and he seems to accompany her on basically all of her missions. It is noted that he is one of her trusted kind of advisors. Later on in the chapter, it's noted that she considers him a friend. So there's no worry about Boma or anything like that here. He is referred to as Master Boma. It is not stated, I think, in the book that he's like a bender or a non-bender. They don't really go into much information at all, other than that, like, he's an advisor, I think, is what he is directly referred to as. And it's not that he's particularly important in this book, it's just a nice connection to the comic. It makes sense that he'd be here. Because Kavik is sort of the main character, he doesn't really play all that much of a role, because he is more of the sort of like Jinpa like character for Yangchen, rather than anything else, sort of organizing stuff for her rather than being, you know, a direct sort of like avatar proper companion. So just more of an organizer type situation here. So it's basically her and Boma on the bison walking through the streets. Sadao wants them to hurry up to get to the Shang meeting as soon as possible. She does quickly note that Sadao is from Nanyang, near Foggy Swamp, so a nice little location reference there. This is when we get sort of she just kind of analyzes the crowd here, in terms of like, she's used to going through these parades a lot of the time, and she spots lots of little things of like, they go past an alleyway and she sees like clear evidence of the fact that there are people who just sort of in a way sleep on the ground in the alleyways, but that the people running the town kind of cleared those people out to make the town look a little bit better. But she notices that, and that like, okay, there's another example of a thing I need to try and fix in this town, more evidence of that happening. Then she has just heard from Kavik in the previous chapter that there were riots, so that the town is on edge, and she's kind of aware that that is also something that's about to happen. So as they get to a certain section of the road, Boma's kind of getting a bit cautious, because, you know, the crowd gets pretty close coming up. And yeah, some of the crowd do start to throw things at her. A bit of fruit gets tossed at her. She just uses airbending to sort of slow it down, catch it. But it's sort of, you know, Yangchen loses it a little bit when Boma gets hit by a jug that kind of gets like smashed across his face, and he's bleeding. And she gets really, really angry about that, because it's a clear sense that like, oh, the crowd knows they can't hit Yangchen, so they're taken to attacking her companion. And obviously Boma is just, in her mind, I guess, this old man who's not going to be able to defend himself. So her emotions rising cause Nujian to get a bit angry, and he slams his tail down, and the crowd sort of gets hit by a blast of wind. She throws the fruit at the guy who threw the jug. She doesn't hit him, but it hits like directly over his head. And there's just a slight sense that like she made a bit of a scene out of this, and she knows that this will affect her reputation to a certain degree here, and she regrets doing this. But it's also, I think, good to show that she isn't perfect, that in a way she's about as close to perfect in a way of an avatar as we've seen, but even she struggles to fully compose herself in situations like this. It is noted as well that the person who threw this, it wasn't some like kind of young person angry. It was someone basically around the age of Boma, very, very frustrated. So there was also kind of that sense as well. So, you know, very, very interesting stuff in terms of like, on her way to the big meeting, she is directly sort of shown little glimpses of what she actually needs to negotiate on behalf of. She's already thinking about that, as she talked about with Kavik and his family, but now she has directly seen it sort of on the streets here. And she doesn't want to just be the avatar who kind of looks good in these parades but never actually gets anything done. She actually wants to accomplish something at this meeting. So the fact that the first half of this chapter is actually about her, at least right at the end, planning something more with like the heated floors, is like a very good sign that she's putting in the effort, that in a way she goes in sort of knowing that the actual public meeting is probably not going to accomplish that much, but maybe she can use something afterwards to get something done. And that's sort of the way that, as we see, that this is going to play out. I think that's basically everything that happens in the chapter. Yeah, like it's it's pretty kind of straightforward. It's just a lot of stuff about kind of Yangchen and the kind of vague things about her memories, and she has to do these exercises, and this is sort of like, for the most part, keeping her from having the sort of like haunting attacks from past avatars, but there's a clear sense that it is affecting her memories in some way. Wish there was more depth on that, but I like the basic idea of what they're going for. And then the parade is just a nice kind of setup before the actual meeting. So we're getting towards the plot now. We are finally getting towards the plot now. We're still, like, the thing is, like, we're still only 54 pages in. So like we're still in like the first quarter of the book, still quite clearly in that stuff. Like page 80 is like the quarter point of the book. So you can see that this early section of the book does have a lot of short chapters, and they will get longer kind of as we go further in, because like we're nearly at the quarterway point of the chapters, but that doesn't quite fit the kind of page count. So it's interesting to consider. So yeah, they're my thoughts on chapter 9, The Parade. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. Otherwise, that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.